But then there's more nuance, I feel like, in the martial arts to your punches and to your techniques. Because you turn your hand just a little bit, there's a straight punch. You turn it vertical and it's something totally different. You change your target and it's a different technique entirely. And that was really neat. I also have looked at it as a progression of, I went from just hands to feet, and then to karate, which has hands, feet, elbows, and knees. So I kind of progressed in difficulty level as well. At least that's how it comes out in my brain.
Welcome. You're watching or listening to the next episode of Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, and today we're joined by Cory Anderson. Cory, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get into our chat, but before we get there, I want to make sure, if we have any first-time listeners, I want to make sure that you know about some of the stuff that we do here at Whistlekick. Obviously, you're listening to this podcast, so you're already halfway in the door already. So you might as well go to whistlekick.com to check out all of the other things that we do, whether it's training programs that you can purchase, whether it's hitting some of our events throughout the country, whether it's purchasing a t-shirt or a hat or any sort of other apparel. We have all kinds of stuff there, whistlekick.com, and you can use the code podcast15 to save yourself 15% off almost anything in our store. You also can go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com for this show and all of the other episodes that we've had, over 1,000 episodes at this point, all completely for free. You can sign up for our new exclusive newsletter, hitting the subscribe button at whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, and find show notes and transcripts and everything on every episode we've ever done. That's a mouthful. But right now we're here to chat with you, Cory. You said you're already having a great day. I'm excited to sit and talk to you because although we know each other professionally and personally a little bit, I'm excited to get to know you better and hear about your martial journey.
Well, thanks for having me. Martial arts has been an interest of mine for a really long time, but I haven't always had the chance to study and participate. As a kid, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were awesome. And yeah, it's like TVs and movies. It always looked really cool, and I wanted to do it. So tried a couple classes, didn't really work out, and got into boxing instead after college.
Interesting. So talk about that initial, like when you started. You said you tried a few classes. How old were you? What where were you in your journey at that point?
I think my first class would have been about 10 years old. I tried one of those like three-month introductory classes at it might have been like a Y karate program. And it was just too many kids, too much going on. And I wasn't ready to be in that sort of organized environment. I could do team sports, but to have that many people following directions and doing the same thing, I just wasn't ready. I also tried Aikido in, I believe it was 8th grade. And the school I went to just wasn't geared towards, I felt it wasn't geared towards teaching kids. It was, we're going to show you and you're going to do it. And there wasn't any more explanation or demonstration, and I needed so much more. So took a break, did team sports all through high school, and took a break from that in college. And then after college, I got into boxing. And that one-on-one training was a really nice introduction into a fighting sport.
And what was it when you were 8 that made you say, I want to try this out? What made you sign up for that 3-month course?
I wanted to be able to do the stuff that they did in movies. I wanted to be able to kick and punch and jump, and it just looked really awesome and really fun. And I loved the physicality of it, and I didn't realize how much mental strength it took to really participate in it at that time.
And so you fast forward 8th grade, you do some Aikido, and then you discovered boxing of all things. How did that come about? Because, many people, I'm not one, but many people wouldn't necessarily consider boxing a martial art, but it's certainly very different from most of the martial arts that we think of. So how did you find yourself there?
In college, there was a boxing club, and I thought that would be a great way to get into, for lack of a better phrase, getting hit in the face. Um, in martial arts, you see a lot of people getting punched, kicked, kneed, elbows, and I thought, oh, it's just hands. Um, but I really liked watching the fights and seeing how athletic the fighters were, but also how smart you had to be to put all of these pieces together to go after your opponent, but also protect yourself. And the boxing club was not at all willing to have a woman join, which I was really disappointed in. But when I got out of college, at my job, I was working the night cleaner. We got to talking, and he's a boxing coach. And he's like, if you want to box. And I was like, I want to try it. Like, I definitely want to try it. And he was like, all right, well, come on down. He's like, I haven't trained women before, but if you want to try it, like, show up and we'll do it. So I went, and I picked up techniques really fast, started getting in shape, and just had an absolute blast training with him. And even had a couple of fights, and I am not a great fighter. But I love the training, I love the sparring, I love the working out. Yeah, it was awesome.
And how long did you do that? Because I'm getting the sense that it wasn't a 3-month program. So talk a little bit about what that was like doing that training at that time.
I trained about, I think it was 2 days a week, and then I trained on my own because I could do all the road work and the jump rope and the shadow boxing on my own time. And then I'd go to the gym and hit mitts, spar, use the bags. And I did that 8 years. About 6 years in, my trainer died. So I took a small break and then tried to get back into it with another trainer. And that gym just had too much family drama going on. And I ended up hurting my shoulder. I don't know if it was an overuse or what, but I took a break. And that was really good for me mentally. And then I started thinking, martial arts, there's a couple schools around where I live. And I've heard about them. I have personally trouble starting things. So for me, going to a school and checking it out is very hard. But one of the schools actually came to the gym that I was working at and offered free classes for a month. And they did it at the gym. And I was like, oh, I'm already here. I want to try this out. And that was Master Sicily. So he came in to the gym, offered classes. I went every single time, absolutely loved it. I was like, this is like a fighting sport, but there's an artistic side to it, which is that whole like martial arts. There's a fitness aspect to it. It's challenging me mentally, physically. And so I joined his school and ended up doing that for, I think it was 10 years up until the pandemic. And then everything shut down.
So it sounds like in what I'm hearing in your journey so far is a lot of amazing coincidences that happened just for you, right? You were in college and they wouldn't let women join the boxing club, and you just happened to be working at a place that the security guard said, oh, I teach boxing, I'll teach you. Like, if you hadn't been there, if you didn't work there, that wouldn't have come about. And then your boxing coach passes away, which is unfortunate, but you're working at this gym where all of a sudden this martial art instructor comes in that is at your club. I'm curious, these things don't often happen like one it just happened once. It's now happened twice. I'm curious if there have been other instances of things that have just worked out in your martial
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, because I started with Master Cicely, who was absolutely great. And then when the pandemic happened, there was kind of a break. But I had already been introduced to Jeremy and a couple other schools in this area. Master Pettingale up in Milton. And so I already had this small network, and I'm not super outgoing. So having even these small connections has been great, because when things started opening up and I already knew Jeremy, I was going to Martial Summit, or what was then called Free Training Day. So I was making all these new connections and these new friends. And then I met you, and you started doing these Saturday trainings down in Keene, New Hampshire. So even though I wasn't in a martial arts school, I could still get this bonus training class with whoever was teaching down in Keene. And it exposed me to all these other parts of martial arts, because I was doing Taekwondo, which was great, but there's limitations at our school. Like, we weren't doing weapons. We weren't doing a lot of joint locks and throws. And those are things that I'm interested in, but finding a school that does that or does everything is impossible. Like, you just don't do that. You only have so many instructors. They only have so many skills and interests, and it's not going to work for everybody. So being able to go there was really great, because now I'm meeting new people who also are open-minded about training in a different style and trying a different technique. And if something works, why wouldn't we use it, even if it's from a different discipline? So that was really great. And then Jeremy got in touch with me about opening up a school and helping out. And that's kind of like another happy coincidence. And yeah, we've been working really hard to get our school going now.
Mm-hmm. So talk about that happy coincidence there with Jeremy and opening the school that you are now a part of.
Well, he and I met at Master Cicely's, and he had taught a couple classes there, just as, guest instructor coming in and showing what he does and helping out our school. And yeah, he gave me a phone call and was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to open a karate school. Not necessarily a whistlekick karate school, but a karate school that, he goes, I have so many ideas, and I've done so much research. And anybody that knows Jeremy knows that he's got 12,000 things going on in his head, and he's going to research and put all these pieces together. And he's like, I want it to be a karate school, and I want you to help out, especially with the kids' classes, because I'm pretty good with kids. And he was like, no, I want you to help out with the kids' classes. It's going to be great. I was like, all right. But I also want to take class, because I want to still train. So we started chatting, and he started talking about all these ideas of how people learn and how different people learn and how to combine things and what kind of techniques are going to be useful and applicable in class and outside of class, and what are we going to focus on and how to tie everything together. And it took us, I want to say, over a year before we even found a place to have class. Mm-hmm. And then once we found a spot, it was, this is what we want to teach. This is how we want to teach. And I started out just assisting with classes, and he would teach. And then I started slowly taking over the kids' class, and then he would teach. So we have a kids, family, and adult class. And it's not based on rank, so anyone can go to any of the classes with it. Kids should be in the kids' class. If they're ready for the higher expectations of an adult class, they're welcome there, but it is a higher expectation. And if you're an adult going to the kids' class, we're going to ask you to help out, because it's going to be more definitely geared to their learning styles and their patience. and I'm gonna call it their fun level. And yeah, I just gradually started doing more and more. We opened up a second location for a second day of training, which has been awesome. And both locations, we have these great communities of students, and they're separate and different, but they're great. And every now and then we have students that trickle back and forth. And it's always this happy, like, oh my gosh, you're coming here today. And everyone just sort of fits in together. Like, we so far haven't had anybody that comes into our school and we go, oh, they're here today. We haven't had that. And I'm always surprised. Because regardless of what you do as a group, there's sometimes people that don't necessarily fit in with what you're trying to do. But you want to welcome them and you want them to be there. But everyone's just been great. We also have a very high number of women in our classes, which is spectacular. And it just changes the energy. Yeah.
And Jeremy and I have noticed that schools that have a female helping run the school, whether it's run the school in general or teaching or maybe is the main instructor, those schools do tend to have a higher percentage of women taking class. And so I guess it's not that surprising in your case that you're doing this. So your journey, you started out, as a kid, did 3 months, and then you found boxing, and then you found Taekwondo, and now you're doing karate, right? There is a common thread in there in that they are all fighting arts, right? But they're still vastly different. I'm interested to know how your boxing influenced your Taekwondo. And knowing you the way I know, I have to imagine that your Taekwondo would have influenced your boxing to some degree as well. And now you're doing karate. So I would love to dive in a little bit into these different arts and how they affected you in different ways.
Yeah, so boxing for me was very physical and made me almost be hyper aware of people's hands and what's going on in close proximity. It also made me very comfortable fighting close to people, which, as you know, in Taekwondo and karate is not always a great idea. And at the start of Taekwondo, I got kicked in the head a lot because I wasn't used to paying attention to the feet. I was watching hands, and I was standing close enough that I could get kicked, even if I couldn't get punched, because majority of the time legs are longer than arms. I'm sure there's somebody out there that has arms that are longer than their legs, but I haven't met them yet. And in Taekwondo, for me, I think I looked at it more as it was fighting, but I think I got in more to the artistic side and I got into the forms. And that was really almost like a meditation part for me because I could just really sink into the form and just flow through it. And that was really great for calming everything about me. And then the boxing, like I was already used to fighting, so I was allowed to spar right off the bat. And there were some students that were not expecting me as a white belt to be able to make contact and to be as fast. But I already had 7-8 years of experience fighting, just not with my feet. So I already had some technique, I already had some of that, but changing it into martial arts from a boxing perspective, some of it carries over, like where you punch, how you punch. But then there's more nuance, I feel like, in the martial arts to your punches and to your techniques. Because you turn your hand just a little bit, there's a straight punch. You turn it vertical and it's something totally different. You change your target and it's a different technique entirely. And that was really neat. I also have looked at it as a progression of, I went from just hands to feet, and then to karate, which has hands, feet, elbows, and knees. So I kind of progressed in difficulty level as well. At least that's how it comes out in my brain. And then karate, yeah, that's just... Taekwondo has a lot of... Well, at least ITF Taekwondo has a lot of fluidity in its movement. The up-down movement. The movements tend to be almost musical, like there's a beat to them. And karate likes to mix it up a little bit more. It's not quite set to a metronome, at least in their katas. There's more timing, I feel. And then they don't have this up-down movement. And that's been really hard for me to switch. And I swear you can see the smoke coming out of my ears sometimes when I'm doing a kata. And I'm going, it's not Taekwondo. It's not Taekwondo. You know, keep my head level. And yeah.
We have definitely had discussions on the show with other guests, or I've talked about it on other podcasts that I've been on, that, you know, changing styles like that definitely can take a slightly different mindset of, you know, going from one to the other. How does that work for you? You know, how do you, or what do you do to help with that transition? Because, you know, yes, okay, this isn't Taekwondo. Are there other things that you have done or do that help with that transition?
For me, I've had to slow my body down. A lot of my muscle memory is from Taekwondo. So if I just do my basics across the floor and I'm completely zoned out thinking about something else, they're going to look like I'm doing Taekwondo. So it's forcing me to focus on what I'm doing and slowing down as well to make sure that I'm doing it. And I'm getting a lot better. It's not as hard, but there are definitely times when I'm doing a kata and I'm like, oh, I got it. And I just completely relax and I get into it. And then my movements start to change. And all of a sudden my kata switches to a Taekwondo kata. It completely changes. It's like, yep, okay, I need to focus more.
Now, do you mean to say that you start doing a karate form and you, in the middle of it, you change to doing a different form? Or are you talking about you're doing the karate form, but it doesn't look like your karate form?
I've done both.
Oh,
So when I'm starting a new kata and I'm just learning it, I will go through it and I will be super, super focused on the technique and the stances. And as soon as I relax and think, yep, I've got a karate kata, I start to do the movements a little bit more Taekwondo. I've got a little bit of the sine wave going on. I might be chambering my blocks differently, because in some of them the hand comes from the inside, but in Taekwondo they always come from the inside. So in karate, if it comes from the outside, I might have them switched. And if I am completely relaxed and maybe thinking about something not karate, if there is a sequence of moves that matches up to a Taekwondo form, I might switch forms. And I've done that definitely with the first kata. The others are a little bit different in our school, but I start doing it and all of a sudden I'm doing Dan Gun. I'm like, all right.
I think if you were to poll martial artists that have gone from one style to a you know, a somewhat similar style, you know, there are a lot of similarities between ITF Taekwondo and a lot of styles of karate, especially when you look at the forms. There's a lot of crossover. I'd be willing to bet a large number of them would have that same sort of. I know I have absolutely done that. I didn't go from taekwondo to karate, but different styles of karate. So that's understandable. I get that. So you talked quite a bit about how the boxing helped you with your taekwondo and how the taekwondo is helping you with your boxing. How taekwondo is helping you with your karate. Are you still boxing at all now, and how does what you're doing now help with that boxing stuff?
I have not gone back to boxing. Um, I I needed a break mentally just from the drama that was going on at the last club or the last school. Um, and I think I was ready to do something more with it. Boxing as an amateur, there's like you can work out and you can train with somebody to become a better fighter, and you can do amateur fights. There are fights in most states. There's the competitions you might have heard of them, the Golden Gloves. But for women fighters, there's not a lot of fighters. And I know there's more now. It's been 20 years. So there's a lot more, which is fantastic. But I was fighting, if I chose to fight, there's 3 girls in my weight division. So we kept fighting each other. If you change a weight division, there might be, 2 or 3 girls in each weight division across 4 or 5 states. And now there's so many more, which is fantastic. They're also mostly younger kids, which is great. They're coming up through elementary schools and high schools and college fighters. I am now in the age where I'm in the senior bracket, and there are even less fighters. So you might go to a fight, and there might not be anybody there. I think I've even gone to Golden Gloves in Vermont and not had an opponent. And it's kind of disappointing to do all that work and not have anybody to fight if that's what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And I think I would go back to boxing for a workout, but I don't think I'm going to compete as a boxer. It's just not where I'm at right now. I think I like the martial arts. I'm not going to say it's a more whole body experience, but I like using my feet and my knees, and I really like the artistic side of it and being able to connect that to the movements. So it's not just fighting. I can also work on another aspect of it, and I feel like there's less of that in boxing for me. And I know some professional fighters would disagree. They would say, no, it's very artistic. And I think for them it is, absolutely. They've got to a point, like, you see the professional fighters and you're like, wow. The way they move and they slip the punches, and you don't even know how they got there. You don't know how that punch missed them or how they got that punch in. And I don't feel like that's a place that I can get to. But it's amazing to watch for other people.
So we've, that artistic side you're finding now, with the taekwondo you had for a while and then the karate. You mentioned earlier that you started coming down for these once a month classes down in Keene, where you were learning anything. Talk a little bit about what that's like for you coming in and learning something completely, vastly different from what you're used to doing.
It's really nerve-wracking for me. There is a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of excitement. I know one day we had somebody teaching, I think it was judo throws, and I was like, that's so cool. I physically should not be thrown, though. That's not a good idea for me. But I want to watch this. I want to see how it's done. And, we did some basics, like how to fall. And I was like, yeah, I didn't learn that before. You're right. We should learn how to fall. That's really important in martial arts. And there are a lot of schools that do the throws and the takedowns. And that's so cool to learn it, because there is a process of starting at, the smallest level of, this is how you go down, this is what your hands are doing, and then you stack up until you're standing and you fall. And just watching the way that other people move and can move is really it's very interesting, because bodies can only move in so many different ways. But there are ways that I just hadn't thought of. It's like, oh, well, if you just do this with your shoulder, then it's going to give you the rotation to throw somebody that way. I was like, that's really interesting. And then you've got somebody that's going to come in with knives and teach us some basic knife defense and strikes. And that's not something that you see every day. So just having that eclectic variety, I find really interesting. I get hyper focused on little things. I have a million different art projects going around the house. But to also be able to have these little bits of hyper focus for one weekend day and go, ooh, we're going to do this. Awesome. I'll try it. It's one day. And then next month it's going to be, traditional karate katas. Awesome. Let's try that. And a traditional ITF Taekwondo class. Awesome. Let's see how that's different. Or weapons, or whatever anybody wants to teach that someone else is passionate about. And that's the big thing with those Saturday classes. Everyone that taught was so passionate and so interested in sharing that it made it fun, even though it could be difficult. It was so fun to learn and see their excitement and for them to share it.
You also get out. I mean, obviously you have the classes you're doing in Vermont with your school, but I know that you mentioned going to Marshall Summit / Free Training Day, and I know you have gone to other weekend events and worked with lots of other people. What benefit do you grab from that? Coming to the classes, you're learning from one person for that class, and then you go to the next one, you're learning from one person. But some of these weekends events that you go to, you end up working with lots of other people. Not necessarily there's one person teaching, but you are interacting and working with a lot of other people. How's that go for you?
For me, I try to always have an open mind with it, and there are things that I'm definitely interested in learning more about. This last Marshall Summit, there was somebody that was talking about childhood development and teaching martial arts. And I was like, awesome. I want to go. That connects directly to what I'm doing. My day job is at an elementary school. I'm a one-on-one. And I know teaching martial arts is different than school, but there's a huge overlap in the way that children learn and participate, whether it's at school or martial arts. And I was like, awesome. She's going to have something that I haven't thought of before, or she's going to make a connection. Also, I'm teaching the kids class. Yeah, this is going to help me become a better teacher. This is going to help me become a better martial artist. And so I'm going to go to that class. There's also going to be classes that I have no idea what they're about. There's going to be a Tai Chi movement meditation thing, and I have never done that. And you know what? I'm going to try it because I've never done it. And this person is going to be passionate about what they do, and this is going to be the best place for me to try it with no pressure, no strings attached, and with a group of people that might know it, might have no clue like me, but we're all there to learn and explore it together. So for me, these martial summits and these training sessions, it's a way to explore things without too much pressure. There's going to be a little bit because I don't want to mess up, but I'm there to learn, and they're there to help us learn. So I put pressure on myself, and the anxiety's there because there's all these new people, and it's this new thing, but it's also a super safe, welcoming environment, and that's why I go.
I want to steer in a slightly different direction now because you mentioned you work in an elementary school. And yes, teaching martial arts is not the same as teaching math, for example, but children are children, and there are absolutely going to be correlations between the two teaching styles, right? How has your okay, pause. Let me ask this question: which did you start doing first, doing martial arts or being working in an elementary school?
I started martial arts first and then started working at the elementary school, but I have been working with kids, I'm going to say almost my whole life. I started babysitting and being a mother's helper when I was 10 years old. And I have siblings that are all the way to 10 years younger than me. So I have always been around kids and worked with kids and helped take care and teach kids.
So how how has one helped the other, and then the other helped the one?
So with teaching, I think, and working as a one-on-one, it helped me realize the different forms of communication that kids use, which is, it's everything. It's their behavior, it's their facial expressions, it's them ignoring you. Like, that's all communication. If they throw a fit, they're telling you something that's going on. If they sit down and ignore you, same thing. They're communicating something to you. So knowing that and going into martial arts class where the structure is, I'm going to say, more rigid than a classroom for the most part, knowing that they're communicating and it might not be the way that I prefer that they communicate, I can be a little bit more flexible and going, oh, okay, I'm talking, giving directions, and this kid's going to flop on the floor. Well, I know developmentally that that's appropriate for a 5 or 6 year old. Totally. So I need to know my lesson plan really well so that when I know that I'm going to give directions and I'm going to have 3 kids who can't stand still and listen because they're not ready to developmentally, I need to give them something to do while they're listening to directions. And I need to keep it simple, and I need to be direct, and I might give them 3 things they've got to do, but I'm going to ask them after everything, what are you going to do? That way they're repeating it. So they're not just doing, they're listening, they're responding, they're participating in these directions, and that's going to help them follow the directions. And we can do that at school, we can do that at martial arts. And with martial arts, I'm learning that kids need to move more, which we all know. They need to move more at school. So the kid that's wiggling in the seat, the one that's chatting up a storm, they need more to do. And that's perfectly fine. You need to stand while you do this? Awesome. You need to lie on the floor? Let's do it. You need to have a conversation about cats while we're doing math because your brain is going so fast, or it needs to do 2 things at once. Let's do it. Like, I'm willing to be flexible on that part. Yeah.
And where do you go from here? Right, you're training. You have your school that you're helping run. You're teaching the kids classes. What's next for you? What's on the horizon?
For me, I want to be better at teaching the kids. We have this environment going where it's fun and serious and a little bit goofy because I can't always pay attention either. We'll be teaching class, and it's like kids going, "Oh my gosh, there's a cat outside." And I'm like, "There's a cat outside! Awesome!" That's not karate though. And I want to become a better teacher, but I also want to spend more time training. And I think that with Jeremy being around and help and teaching more, because he's had some stuff that he's had to deal with, I've taken over more teaching. So having him back is going to allow me to train more. And also when I'm in class training, I'm also learning how to be a better teacher by watching him teach, which is awesome. Um, and I'm not sure what's going to happen after that. Like, we'd love to have more days to teach, but location-wise, it's not working. We might need another location. But just exploring more martial arts and more styles, like I'd love to do weapons of some sort. Um, I love the nunchaku. That's just been, I don't know, a fascination of mine since childhood. Watching Bruce Lee with the nunchucks, like that's so cool. I took one class ages ago, probably 10 years ago, and I was like, this is really fun. But even a bow staff or swords or sais, like just learning how to move my body with that, I think that would be really interesting and fun.
All right. Well, you'll have to keep an eye out for stuff like that in the area. Maybe you'll find something.
Yeah. Yeah.
The common thread through all of this that I've noticed in listening to your story is you clearly had instructors that were open-minded, right? We've all had instructors, I suspect anyway, we've all had instructors that were against cross-training, and it sounds like you were always had people that were open. You mentioned Master Sicily having Jeremy come in to teach some classes. You had a boxing coach that was you never said open-minded about cross-training, but the fact that he was willing to teach a woman when the other boxing coaches in the area wouldn't, be clearly open-minded. And I think that it would be hard to say that that did not affect your training in a positive way.
Oh, it definitely did. I also think if I had trained with someone that was more closed-minded, I don't think I would have stayed. I don't think that I would have felt, I don't want to say comfortable, but it wouldn't have felt like the right place. And knowing myself, and I try to be open-minded and think about other things and try different things. If someone who's teaching me isn't willing to listen about the different martial arts and see that maybe this style isn't for them personally, but there could be aspects that are going to work great for me. Like, all of our bodies are different. They can all do different things. And if there was one martial art that worked for everybody, there would be one martial art. But they don't work for everybody. So you have to try them and see which one's going to work best for you. And maybe it won't work best for you this year, but maybe next year, that one will work for you. Or at least part of it will. So for me to have a teacher that's willing to at least acknowledge that this is what they love and this is what they want to teach, that's fantastic. And they're willing to share it. But if their student is saying, oh, I also like this, but I want to try this, to say, oh, absolutely not, that's ridiculous. I can see how they might think it will interfere with what they're doing, but if someone is passionate about something else, let them try it. We've had students come in and go, oh, I love karate, but I also want to try MMA. Awesome. Go try it. Karate will always be here. You can train karate when you're a kid, an adult. If you're 90 years old, you can train martial arts. If you want to try playing the piano, go for it. If you want to play baseball because it's baseball season, try it. But to get upset that they want to do something else, that wouldn't have gelled with who I am and what I do, and I don't think I would have lasted there.
All right. And then one of the last things I want to ask you about is, it's now, right now, as of recording this, 2025. I say that because maybe someone is listening to this episode next year and it's 2026. But it's 2025. In 2035, 10 years from now, we're going to get together and have another interview. What do you hope you would be telling me in that interview that you've done at that point in those last 10 years?
Oh, in 10 years. Hopefully in 10 years, I will have gotten more comfortable seeking out the things that I'm interested in. So I mentioned I'm interested in weapons, but pulling the trigger on finding somebody and actually going there and doing it is incredibly hard. So hopefully by then I will have worked on that and been able to do that, or find someone that can help push me in that direction. I think our karate school is going to expand by then, and hopefully we can have some sort of summer program. I think that would be amazing. There's a lot of kids, there's a lot of options, and I think everyone should try martial arts. And the summertime is a great time to get them involved, get them outside, get them experimenting with their body and how it moves and how it works and having fun. So 10 years, yeah, a lot can happen.
Yeah. Well, we shall certainly see. I'm going to throw it to you to end us up here in just a minute, but I want to make sure to let all of the audience know that Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio is where you can go to find information on this episode or any of the episodes we've done. You can click our subscribe button there to get to our newsletter. And I failed to mention at the beginning, if you want to help make this show happen, you can do that by going to patreon.com/whistlekick and help support this show. Stealing from another podcast I listen to, don't do it, do it. Go to patreon.com/whistlekick and help support the show so that we can continue to bring amazing interviews and topic shows twice a week. We do episodes twice a week, so plenty of stuff to listen to. But, Cory, I want to thank you for being here. How do you want to close out things today? What do you want our audience to take away from our chat today?
I want people to know that when they have kids in their class, we still need to let them be kids. I know that it's martial arts and we have our traditions and our standards, and I think we can keep those and let the kids have fun and be goofy and weird. And it doesn't matter if there's a kid that wants to be quiet in the corner, or if there's a kid that just can't stop moving, or even a kid that's going to be stimming in the middle of class. Like, we can have them all in class. Because martial arts can be for everybody.